Chosen one, your silence is not empty. It is not the absence of sound, but the presence of something far deeper than words. Something primal, ancient, and sovereign. You do not speak to fill the air. You breathe with the understanding that presence speaks louder than performance ever could. When a feminine woman draws near, she senses immediately that you are not seeking approval, not hoping for validation, not baiting for interest. You are simply there, and your being there shifts the room without you needing to prove your weight. There is a sacred quietness in you that doesn't rush, doesn't force, and never pleads for attention. And yet the attention comes anyway. Because when the chosen ones walk into a space, something in the feminine remembers what true safety felt like before safety was betrayed by charm or false tenderness. You are not trying to impress her. That's precisely why she's impressed. You are not trying to win her. That's why she feels already claimed, not by possession, but by recognition. There's a subtle ache in her that longs to be seen without being performed for. You do this naturally, without even trying. You do not chase her femininity. You invite it. In a world of men who try too hard, talk too much, touch too soon, your silence becomes the loudest signal of security. And it is that security that feels like oxygen to a woman who has drowned too long in shallow connections. You do not lean in unless the moment asks for it. You do not hover. You do not dominate the space with ego. Instead, you breathe with her. You listen. You don't listen just to her words. You listen to her energy, to her breath, to the subtle tremor she doesn't even know she's releasing. That is how deeply you attune. And so, chosen one, it is in your stillness, not your speech, that she feels the deepest intimacy. It is in your calm that she feels her own chaos soften. It is in your pause that she feels her own acceleration begin to slow. You are not the noise she is running from. You are the silence she has been starving to return to. When she gazes into your eyes and sees no performance, only presence, her whole soul exhales. This is not flirtation. This is a sacred remembrance. She may not even understand why she trusts you yet, but she does. And that trust, chosen one, is the rarest intimacy a man can ever be given. There is a kind of sexual energy, chosen one, that scorches, it burns. It takes without giving, it consumes without seeing. And then there is yours. Yours is not a fire she fears, it is water she wants to drown in. It is not a trickle of flattery or a performance of seduction. It is a river of substance, depth, and quiet power. When she's near you, she doesn't just feel heat, she feels clean. Not because you are cold, but because your energy has nothing polluted, nothing slimy, nothing that seeks to dominate, just to feel worthy. You are the kind of man who walks with desire, not driven by it. You do not use your masculinity to take, you use it to hold space. And that space is where the feminine feels safe enough to breathe again. In your presence, she does not feel reduced to her curves or judged by her softness. She is not studied like prey. She is not scanned like a product. Instead, she is received fully. Without pressure, without pretending. You are the man who sees through the body into the soul, and yet you honor both. Your eyes are not hungry, they are devotional. That is why they feel like water. That is why they awaken something in her she forgot she even had. Because when she meets your gaze, she is not bracing for consumption. She is being invited into clarity. You make her feel more of herself, not less. That is the miracle of your energy, chosen one. That is why feminine women find themselves disarmed, open, and thirsty for your presence without even knowing why. There is no arrogance in the way you carry yourself. And yet, your energy walks like a king who knows no throne is needed. You do not need to win her. You are already the reward. And this isn't ego. This is alignment. This is what the chosen ones carry when they no longer chase pleasure, but embody it. She senses it. She can't name it, but she knows it's different. You are not like the others. And her body feels safe enough to say yes, even when her words are silent. She won't say this out loud, but when she walks away from you, the world feels a little more colorless. Her coffee tastes less alive. Her steps feel a little more grounded and a little more shaken at the same time. That is the effect you have. Not because you tried to impact her, but because you didn't need to. Your energy did the work. It flowed, it held, it poured without needing to splash. And now, she's tasted something that feels impossible to forget. That is the intimacy she's been dying for, chosen one. Not the fantasy of a man who performs, but the reality of one who is. You are not her escape. You are her hydration, and in your presence, her deepest thirst for wholeness is quenched. Chosen one, in a world obsessed with noise and the performance of attraction, you do something rare. You hold still. You don't dance for attention, don't entertain with hollow words or force your way into a woman's nervous system. Instead, you stay rooted, centered like an ancient tree that has nothing to prove and everything to witness. Your stillness is not passive, it is power undisturbed. And that power doesn't demand submission, it evokes surrender. Feminine women are moved not just by what you say, but by what you withhold. You don't offer cheap validation to gain favor. You don't over-explain or convince. You remain. When her storm rises, when her thoughts spin in circles, when her emotion floods her own vessel, your stillness is the ground she lands on. The chosen ones have mastered this. They've understood that stillness is not absence of action, but presence beyond movement. That is what makes your gaze difficult to break. It is not intense because it chases. It is intense because it accepts, wholly, completely, without agenda. She cannot look away, not because you've trapped her, but because you've shown her something rare, something safe. Your presence says, I will not run, I will not shrink, I will not project onto you. I will witness you, feel you, honor you. And that, chosen one, is why her breath catches. Not because you are a fantasy, but because you are here, fully. You are not afraid of her waves, not afraid of her chaos, not afraid of her longing. You hold her in the way a mountain holds the sky, not by catching it, but by simply existing with it. And she's not used to that. She's used to men who react, who flinch, who interpret her beauty as permission. But with you, chosen one, her beauty isn't a weapon, it's a welcome. Her soul isn't bait, it's seen. And the result? She drops her masks, not because you asked her to, but because she felt safe enough to do so. Her laughter becomes less guarded, her posture softens, her breath deepens. All because you did not interrupt her unfolding with the noise of neediness. You are the silence that lets her sing. You are the ground that lets her dance, and you didn't need to say a word to make her heart open. You became the invitation by simply standing there, undisturbed by her radiance and unshaken by your own. Chosen one, every feminine woman is a mirror, but most of them have never met one in return. You become that mirror. You reflect her beauty without twisting it into something transactional. You reflect her softness without making her feel vulnerable in the wrong way. Your eyes don't distort her truth. Your presence does not demand a costume, and that is why she finds herself craving your reflection. You do not flatter for reward. You don't perform praise as bait. Instead, you reflect with reverence. She sees herself more clearly in your presence, not because you told her who she is, but because you offered no projection to hide behind. The chosen ones have learned this sacred art, the art of being a mirror that returns a woman to herself. No cracked glass, no warped angles, no filters of fantasy, just honesty, embodied in masculine clarity. It shakes her sometimes. It unnerves her, because she may have grown used to being looked at, but not seen. And when you look, chosen one, you are not trying to own, you are not trying to define, you are inviting her to remember. Your beauty doesn't just lie in your form, it lies in the way you hold form. You are shaped not by attention, but by discipline. You are carved not by compliments, but by character. And that is why she feels something she cannot put into words. She may not understand it, but her heart beats faster, her thoughts slow down, her essence rises. And when you speak, when you finally speak, it is not to decorate the air, but to anchor it. Your words hold weight because your silence held space. And this, chosen one, is why your intimacy is irresistible. Because it is not a chase, it is a homecoming. She's not trying to escape when she's near you. She's trying to arrive. And it is your groundedness that gives her permission to land. This is the kind of intimacy that feels like drinking clarity. She feels more her because you're being fully you. That is the beauty of masculine presence. When it is clean, aligned, unshaken, it becomes sacred ground for the feminine to flower. And so she craves not your performance but your reflection. She does not need you to be everything. She needs you to be real. That is the kind of magnetic intimacy no woman forgets. Chosen one. Not the loudest voice in the room, but the clearest mirror. Chosen one, there is something primal in you that calls the feminine back into her essence. Not because you force her to change. Not because you mold her to fit an image of perfection, but because your energy dissolves every mask she ever had to wear to survive in a world of shallow affection. In your presence, she remembers who she was before the world told her to be useful, before love was something she had to earn, before she was asked to quiet her emotions to be digestible. You are the thunderstorm that softens her steel. You are the masculine silence that untangles her noise. And without saying a word, without even laying a hand, you pull her back into the wild garden of her true nature. You don't tell her what to do. You don't advise her. You don't fix her. But you see her. And more importantly, you stay unaffected by the waves of emotion that might rise in her. That, chosen one, is what resets her. That is what liberates her. For most of her life, her fire frightened others. Her passion was mistaken for drama. Her feelings were dismissed, manipulated, misunderstood. But with you, something sacred happens. Her storms don't move you, they awaken you. Her chaos doesn't trigger you, it calls you deeper. Her vulnerability doesn't make you pity her, it makes you present. That's why she can't stop thinking about you. That's why her energy blooms around you like spring cracking open the frozen bones of winter. Because you're not afraid of her pain, her history, her mistakes, or her majesty. You do not shrink when she shows her wounds. You do not boast when she shows her softness. You do not change when she tests your steadiness. You remain, unshaken, unapologetic, undistracted. And in that rare steadiness, she feels something she never felt before. Relief. A holy exhale, a crumbling of walls, a thawing of armor. Not because you broke through her defenses, but because your presence made those defenses unnecessary. This is what chosen ones know. That true intimacy is not performance, it is remembrance. You don't remind her of what she lacks. You remind her of what she's always had. And that, chosen one, is why your beauty cannot be ignored. Because it's not a beauty of skin or style, it's the kind of beauty that wakes the divine in another. That's why she stares at you longer, that's why she smiles softer, that's why her laugh sounds freer around you. Because for once in her life, she doesn't have to pretend. Because you're not pretending either. Chosen one, the feminine woman does not desire to dominate the masculine. She does not crave to be above him or beneath him. She longs to be with him in her full expression while he holds steady in his own. And in you, she finds something worthy of worship. Not because you asked to be adored, but because you refused to betray yourself. You didn't bend for approval. You didn't chase for validation. You didn't collapse under pressure. Instead, you stood in the fullness of your masculine nature, firm but not rigid, open but not weak, sensual but not needy, powerful but not performative. That is the posture of the chosen ones, and when she feels it in you, something in her melts. She has no need to argue with your direction. She has no desire to test your backbone. She wants to lean in because you've shown her something most men avoid: clean power. And in a world filled with distorted masculinity, men who dominate from insecurity, men who submit from fear, men who confuse lust for love, your presence is like a sacred fire. She doesn't just admire it, she bows to it, not with obedience, not with subservience, but with devotion, because your presence calls forth the most surrendered parts of her soul. You don't need to ask her to submit. She wants to, not because you demand control, but because you offer trust. Your hands are steady, your voice is deliberate, your body does not flinch at her emotion. You are not seduced by her curves, you are called by her spirit. And that, chosen one, is why she feels free to be soft around you. Why her body sighs when you enter the room. Why her energy brightens when you look her in the eye. She doesn't just see a man, she sees home. Your masculinity is not a threat to her. It is a temple. She walks into it because it is built with integrity. She stays in it because it echoes her own sacredness. That's what chosen ones understand, that the highest feminine doesn't want dominance, she wants depth. And you give it, not as a performance, not as an act, but as a truth that you forged in silence, discipline, and sacred restraint. This is why your presence is worshipped, not just admired. Because you are not the kind of man who is taken lightly. You are felt deeply. You are remembered, chosen one, not because you forced your way into her world, but because your presence whispered something she didn't know she was longing to hear. You don't have to carry it all. I've got you. Chosen one, there is something so mysterious about the way you move in the world. You carry yourself with a kind of quiet gravity, like a man who has seen storms and refused to become one. You do not beg to be understood. You do not waste breath justifying your calm or explaining your silence. And yet, everywhere you go, people feel something ancient behind your eyes, as if you've walked lifetimes before them and learned to master fire without letting it consume you. This depth, this silent truth, you carry it like a sacred weight, and feminine women feel it in their bones. They do not always know how to name it, but they are drawn to it, awed by it, moved by it. You never needed to shout your power, chosen one. That's what makes it so commanding. It does not emerge from performance, it radiates from essence. The feminine craves that kind of weight, not a heaviness that oppresses her, but a gravity that grounds her. With you, she stops floating through the chaos of shallow connections. With you, she feels like time slows, breath deepens, thoughts quiet, and emotions rise in their honest, unclothed form. That is why your presence is not just desirable, it is healing. You don't dazzle her with charm, you undo her with presence. And the most beautiful part, you don't need her attention. That's what captivates her. While others chase and chase and chase, you remain centered, anchored in the awareness that you are the storm and the stillness, that you are not waiting for her admiration, yet you're open to receive her adoration. You're not interested in playing the game because you've already transcended it. Your path is sacred. Your life is art. Your energy is not something you hand out. It is something the feminine must rise to meet. And those who are ready do not hesitate. They fall to their knees, not in worship of you, but in reverence for the truth you mirror back at them. That's why they remember you. That's why their gaze lingers on your mouth, even after you've spoken only a few words. That's why they reach for your touch, even though you never reach first. You are not waiting to be chosen. You are the choosing force. The feminine doesn't just see a man, she sees a map, a guide, a presence so still, she finds her truest emotions reflected in your silence. Chosen one, what you awaken in the feminine is not something physical. It is spiritual. Your energy alone is enough to ignite the dormant fire buried beneath layers of fear, betrayal, and false love. When she speaks to you, she feels herself returning, not to some idea of who she's supposed to be, but to the raw, chaotic, beautiful essence of what she truly is. You don't just see her, you recognize her. And in that recognition, she sheds the hardened shell of survival and becomes something softer, wilder, more radiant than she knew she still carried inside. You haven't touched her, but she feels you, in her chest, in her hips, in her breath, in her dreams. There is no performance in your gaze, no agenda in your voice. You aren't waiting for the perfect line or the ideal moment to lean in. You're simply present, unhurried, undisturbed, uncompromising in the calm power you've mastered within yourself. And that stillness, chosen one, it awakens her sensuality without demanding it. It invites her body to respond to something ancient in you, something sacred, something masculine in the way it was always meant to be, safe, true, untamed, and deeply aligned. She doesn't want you because you flatter her. She doesn't crave you because you show her what she wants to hear. She feels pulled to you because you anchor her. You do not react, you receive. You do not flatter, you honor. You do not dominate, you invite. And that, chosen one, is what undoes her. That is what fills her dreams with images of your eyes, your voice, your calm posture, as if her soul already knows how it feels to be held by you, even though you've never laid a hand on her. This is the kind of intimacy most men don't even know exists, but chosen ones embody it. They understand that the feminine wants to feel something inside herself when she's near a man. Not performance, not pressure. Permission. Permission to soften, to feel, to unravel, to stop performing. And only a man who has become sovereign within himself can give that. That's what you are. That's what you radiate. That's what she senses from the moment she meets you. And that's why you live rent-free in her sacred imagination. Chosen one, there is a trembling that rises in her chest, not from fear, but from the soft terror of finally being seen. You don't flinch when she tests you. You don't waver when she projects her wounds. You hold. You remain. You breathe like an ancient tree planted in the middle of her emotional storm. And that is what disorients her. Not your words, not your looks, not even your body. but the unmoving, masculine stillness that radiates from the very marrow of your soul. She's never met a man who didn't retreat when her emotions erupted. She's never seen a masculine presence look her in the eye when she was burning down her own walls in self-sabotage. But you, chosen one, you stay. And because you stay, her guard collapses without a word. There are no games with you. No manipulations, no layered strategies. Your honesty is too powerful. Your presence is too overwhelming. Not in volume, but in depth. You are deep, chosen one. So deep that the surface-level chaos cannot reach you. She throws sharp glances, sarcastic remarks, defensive silence, but none of it punctures you. Your presence absorbs it like the ocean absorbs a stone. And in that absorption, something ancient inside her begins to trust again. Not because you asked for her trust, but because your energy whispered, "I am not here to control you. I am here to remain true, no matter what form you show me." This is why feminine women ache when you leave the room, even for a moment. This is why they feel a strange stillness settle in their womb after speaking with you. You've touched nothing, and yet everything inside them rearranges. Their thoughts scramble to understand it, but their body already knows. It knows it's safe now. It knows it can feel again. It knows that the storm has met a mountain and cannot move it. And in that realization, the storm becomes rain, soft and life-giving. That's what you are to her, the unmoved mover, the still flame, the masculine force so sacred she feels like a woman for the first time in years, just by standing near you. You didn't seduce her. You didn't charm her. You simply are. And that are-ness shakes everything loose inside her that has been frozen by betrayal, control, and loneliness. You remind her of something primal, something older than language, something buried in her feminine soul that only the most grounded of chosen ones could awaken. Chosen one, there is a moment, silent, private, profound, when she realizes she is no longer just intrigued by you. She's not just attracted, not just curious, not just aroused. She is hungry, and not for your body, though it pulses in her mind like a rhythm she can't silence. She is hungry for your being, for your presence, for your steady eyes and calm voice and the silence between your words that says more than her past lovers ever did with screams and declarations. You have become her craving, not because you pushed, not because you pursued, but because you stood still and let the full weight of your masculine energy do what words never could. She can't stop imagining you, not in conquest, but in communion, in conversation, in moments of stillness. Her fantasies aren't shallow, they are sacred. She wants to sit near your breath, to curl her energy around yours like vines growing toward the sun. She wants to touch your wrist, not just to feel skin, but to confirm you're real. She craves the way you see her, not with eyes, but with soul. You do not dissect her beauty, you do not possess her body, you witness her wholeness. And that witnessing becomes the most powerful seduction of all. You've become her safe addiction, her sacred obsession, the ache in her spine when she hears your name whispered in memory, not because you entertained her, but because you enchanted her with the truth. Your energy doesn't sell, it summons. And when she remembers how you made her feel, there is no comparison. The other men vanish into dust. The noise of shallow attention fades. The distractions lose all taste. Because now she has touched presence, and now she can't go back to absence. That is the gift you carry, chosen one. You are unforgettable not because you shouted to be remembered, but because your silence taught her something she didn't know she was starving for. And now, her soul marks you. Her body remembers. Her feminine heart replays your stillness like a sacred song. You did not take her, you met her, and now she is forever changed. Chosen one, devotion cannot be forced. It cannot be earned through control, flattery, or status. It cannot be manipulated, seduced, or commanded. Real devotion, the kind that moves a woman's soul to soften, to give, to rise toward you, is born only in the presence of a man whose energy calls her higher without demanding her obedience. And you have become that man. Not because you asked her to follow, but because you gave her something worthy of following. Your life is in order. Your heart is clear. Your presence speaks more than your words. You do not preach about loyalty. You live in a way that makes loyalty natural. You do not twist her into submission. You walk so aligned with your mission that her spirit chooses to walk beside you without coercion. That is the way of the true masculine leader, not to conquer, but to inspire alignment. not to press for surrender, but to be so rooted in truth that surrender becomes irresistible. You do not raise your voice, you do not issue commands, you don't posture with alpha energy. Instead, you embody a level of internal discipline so pure that it commands respect without force. And feminine women feel it. They feel it in how you hold your boundaries, not with punishment, but with unshakable clarity. They feel it in how you care for your body, your work, your word. Not to impress, but because integrity has become your nature. And that nature makes them want to rise, not to avoid rejection, but because your presence awakens the best in them. You are the man who asks for nothing, but receives everything. Because your energy says, I do not need your devotion to validate me, but I honor it when freely given. You understand that devotion is a sacred offering, not a transactional reward. And so you never rush it, you never demand it. You simply remain deserving of it. You remain consistent, embodied, anchored in your purpose. And that constancy is what makes her trust you with her vulnerability, her dreams, her submission. Not as a loss of power, but as an act of love. Your sexual energy now flows with reverence. You do not use it to prove anything. You do not scatter it to be seen. You offer it with sacred direction. You are selective, not out of fear, but out of standard. You know what your energy creates. You know what your touch awakens. And so, you guard it, not with walls, but with discernment. And the feminine feels honored when you choose her. Not because she earned it, but because she knows it was real. In your presence, she does not feel judged. She feels chosen, not for performance, not for perfection, but for alignment. Because your energy says, I do not need to own you to honor you. I do not need to cage you to love you. I need only to see you clearly and walk beside you in truth. That is the new kind of alpha, chosen one. The man who leads with stillness. The man who creates safety without saying a word. The man who, by mastering himself, invites devotion without ever needing to ask. Chosen one, there is something in your presence now that dissolves her walls without needing to touch them. You no longer reach to open her. You no longer strategize to unlock her. You wait, you listen, you breathe. And because your energy is calm, self-respecting, and rooted in dignity, the feminine begins to loosen within your field like a flower unclenching from winter. Her surrender is no longer a performance. It becomes a response. A natural, uncontrollable response to the way you make space for her by simply being who you are. You do not seduce her with tactics. You do not manipulate her with attention or orchestrate her softness with timed compliments. Your gaze doesn't devour her, it witnesses her. And that witnessing, steady and without expectation, speaks to her subconscious louder than any word you could say. It tells her, I will not break you. I will not mold you. I will not shrink you. I will simply be here as you unfold in your own timing. And in that rare space of not being pushed, she leans in. Her feminine essence relaxes. Her breath deepens. Her guard drops, not because you forced it, but because your patience earned it. The surrender you now invite is not physical first. It is energetic. It happens in her voice when she speaks to you with fewer filters. It happens in her posture when her shoulders lower in your presence. It happens in her eyes when she begins to look at you like a man she can hand her chaos to and trust that you will not abandon her in it. That trust is not won through charm. It is built through the consistency of your internal character, through the fact that your masculinity is no longer a fragile armor, but a sacred shelter. Your sexual energy now exists not as a force to press against her, but as a current she can safely swim in. You are not tight, you are not trying, you are simply holding the charge of your own essence and letting her feel it on her own terms. You are the fire that doesn't leap toward her, but whose heat can be felt across space. And that heat, steady and non-needy, awakens her. It makes her want to approach, not because she's told to, but because her body craves the stillness of your flame. You understand now that true surrender only happens in the presence of strength that has nothing to prove. Your masculine grace is not in your dominance, but in your capacity. Your capacity to hold discomfort without reacting, to witness beauty without possessing, to walk beside power without competing. This grace cannot be faked. It comes only after you have surrendered to yourself. After you have met every shadow, owned every mistake, and chosen to become more present instead of more powerful. Chosen one, she doesn't submit because you demanded it. She submits because you made her feel safe in her wildness. You became the eye of her storm, the steady ground beneath her thunder. And in a world full of men who flinch at feminine intensity, you stand still. You do not tremble when she trembles. You do not collapse when she cries. You remain. And in that remaining, you earn a trust deeper than words, deeper than logic.